Well, I know it's been a while since my last YouTube video. To be honest, that's mainly because of the weather. For most of March and April, we didn't have a single good night for astrophotography. Plus, I was trying to learn how to use the Raza telescope and encountered a few problems along the way. So all things considered, I didn't really have any good opportunities to capture new data for some new tutorials. And that brings me to the topic of today's video. While I was stuck with cloudy skies and like 20 and 30 mile an hour gusts all night long, I learned about a new website called Telescope.Live, and it is actually a lot of fun to play around with, especially considering I couldn't take my own photos. And that's what we're going to look at today. The way Telescope.Live works is you sign up. I think you get like a free 30-day account right out of the gate, which is perfect. And then from there, you can choose one of 3 subscription levels. But Telescope.Live has telescopes located across the world. And these allow you to capture objects that you might not even be able to see from your home location. After you've signed in and got your free account going, the way I use the website mainly is these one-click observations. Then I'll click New Observation. From here, you're going to see a list of all the different objects that their telescopes will be photographing in the coming hours, days, and even months. For example, if you want to photograph the Large Magellanic Cloud, it looks like you have 3 opportunities in a row. And that means you can capture a lot of data in a short amount of time. In this case, these are all being used from the Australian telescope using LRGB filters. This brings up another good point. If you're thinking about getting one of those dedicated astro cameras, mainly a monochrome camera, this is going to allow you to practice those editing workflows because now you'll have access to monochrome LRGB data, or maybe even hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen for the narrowband workflow. If you're not sure what these objects are, you could click More Info, and it'll give you a little description on the object. And this is really one of the few problems I have with Telescope.Live, is that I wish it would show you a photo of the object rather than just a little description. As it is though, they currently don't have that function, so what you'd have to do is just kind of highlight the name, search Google for it, and then get an idea of what you're potentially going to be photographing. And keep in mind that these are all different focal lengths and they might not quite align to the telescope that you'll be using through Telescope.Live. At the very least though, you'll have some idea of what the object might look like. In this case, if we think we like the Running Chicken Nebula, we'll click Observe Now and then hit Confirm. And this will be added to our list over on the left, My Observations. If you do have that free silver plan, then I believe you can get 5 of these at one time. Once they are complete, then you can do another 5 and so on. After you've chosen whatever objects you want to photograph, we'll go to My Observations. And now you're going to see a list of everything you have scheduled for the coming days and weeks. And then towards the bottom, you'll see the actual data that you have captured already. For example, we have the Dolphin Nebula. I actually have not looked at this data yet. So what I would do is click More Info. And you could download the image to the left here, but I don't know why you would. We want to actually practice our processing skills. So in that case, we'll click See Original Data. And then we have all of our raw photos here. These are the FITS files from their monochrome camera. We had 2 photos taken with the blue filter, 2 with green, 2 with red, 2 with luminance, all 600 seconds long. And one of the nice things is that these already have the dark flat bias frames applied to these light frames. So you don't have to worry about downloading the darks and the flats and all that or subtracting them. It's already taken care of for you. In this case, we'll hit the checkbox right here to select everything. And then we'll click Download right here. If you give it a few minutes, then this will appear in your download requests. And you can click the icon here to download your data directly to your computer. At that point, you're free to begin your processing and do whatever you want to the data. If you're still having trouble though, they do also have tutorials where, let's say you're using Affinity Photo, they'll have a specialized tutorial on that. Of course, I also have my own tutorials, and I recently completed my Deep Space Course 2021 update, where we look at some really awesome Southern Hemisphere objects. And that was in large part thanks to Telescope.Live. As I briefly mentioned, with the help of Telescope.Live, I can now access objects that I normally would never be able to see up here in Utah. And that's mainly through the help of their telescopes in Australia and Chile as well. That's one of my favorite aspects of Telescope.Live is the fact that now I can really get some great data on maybe the Carina Nebula or the Large Magellanic Cloud or the Tarantula Nebula. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here that normally I would not be able to capture. Another benefit is that you're going to be getting access to a really high-end monochrome camera, narrowband filters in this case, and a big telescope located in a dark sky. And in some cases, maybe you're located in a very light polluted area and you don't have the world's best telescope yet, etc. So this is going to allow you to capture data and see what's possible with some really expensive gear. The other things I wanted to show you before we head over and do a quick little processing tutorial is that they have pro data sets as well. And you can come in here if you have, I think, at least a silver plan and download the data. One thing that confused me though is it says equivalent cost 87 credits, for example. And I thought you would have to pay money for this data. But as long as you have, I think, the silver plan, then this data is actually free and you can download it and mess around with it. Finally, for those of you that want to be a little bit more advanced, you can go to the advanced requests. Then from here, you can type in whatever objects you want to photograph. Maybe the Lagoon Nebula. That's something I'd like to do. We'll hit that in there, hit search coordinates, and it automatically pulls in the right ascension and declination. However, if you know the exact right ascension declination that you'd prefer, you can enter that instead. In this case, though, I'll go with their recommended coordinates, and then we'll hit next. And then from here, we can choose the telescope that we want to use. I'd recommend you kind of just look over the basic settings here. We can see the diameter changes as well as the field of view. So some of these are going to be a lot wider field of view than the others. And I'd recommend reading through how to pick the correct telescope if you're still a little bit unsure. In my case, I'll just go with the Australian one today. Then we'll hit next. From here, it's almost like you're in your ASIR Pro. You can choose what filters you want to use, what camera settings, and more. For example, if I want to come in here, just like I'm setting up my shooting schedule, I'll choose maybe the H-alpha filter because there's a lot of great H-alpha in the Lagoon Nebula. Then for my exposure time, maybe 10 minutes. The total amount of photos, well, since we're paying for it, maybe only an hour's worth today. In this case, we've added our H-alpha photos. We could continue on though, and then grab some red data. We'll use all the same scenario there, and then we'll grab blue. We don't really need green necessarily, and that would also save us some money with it if we're not getting the green. There we see our little timetable. If you want, you could turn on dithering. Might help. Next step. And this is one thing I really like about Telescope.Live is they actually give you a discount if the moon will be out. And as you know, if you're shooting in narrowband, the moonlight really isn't too much of a problem. Therefore, you can choose maybe 75% moonlight and save 50% off the total price. In this case, for the Lagoon Nebula, it'll cost me about 192 credits. I've got 200. And then from there, I can decide what I want to do. Now, obviously, one of the whole appeals of astrophotography and the reason we do it is we're the one taking the photos, we're the one setting everything up, etc. The whole point of Telescope.Live is to allow you to photograph even when it's cloudy or if you don't have the best gear yet, or maybe just having problems with your gear and you can't get the darn thing to work. Either way, this is a fun way to capture new data from different observatories all across the world. And as I was getting ready to publish this video today, I got an email from Telescope.Live mentioning a brand new feature that's coming in just a few days. As you can see, that is the ability to photograph the planets with their telescopes. Now, if you're like me, you probably never had the right gear to do planetary photography. You need to have a big telescope and a specialized camera, and you have to do a lot of special processing. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun to test out when it goes live here, I think on May 23rd. Let's take a look. Yeah, May 23rd, they're having a little launch day event. So if you want to check this out, be sure to head over to the website. I know I'm going to be looking forward to trying out some planetary photography. Of course, I'm not the one taking the photos, but still, it'd be fun to process it and get a closer look at these different planets. Now that we've gone through the basics of Telescope.Live, I thought I'd show you a quick editing tutorial based on some of this data. We're going to start off here in Deep Sky Stacker and open our FITS files straight from the monochrome camera. Remember, these have already had the calibration frames applied. All we have to do is stack the light frames. And the first thing I want to mention is that we only have 20 minutes of data per filter. This is where you'd want to go through on your one-click observations and do the same object multiple times throughout the year. That way you can get a lot more data rather than just the 20 minutes per filter. That's all we've got to work with today, and we'll see how far we can take it. We'll click on 2 of our H-alpha photos, and then we're going to register checked pictures. I already got a lot of videos, and there's a lot of other great astrophotographers that'll walk you through how to do this. I don't want to waste your whole day though. We'll just go through the basics. We're using the median combination because we only have 2 light frames. This is our H-alpha data. And before I stack it, I should choose a reference frame. That way all the stars line up. The easiest way to do that is to just, let's say, right click on our H-alpha photo here and use as reference frame. all of our light frames will be stacked to the location of the stars in this particular photo. And to be clear, I only have my H-alpha photo selected right now with the checkbox. But we can stack these checked pictures for 20 minutes of data, hit OK, and then there we go. I know I'm going through this kind of fast, but like I said, there's a lot of other good tutorials on YouTube. This is meant to just be a general overview. Now that we've stacked our H-alpha data, we'll click Save Picture to File, and we can call this H-alpha, for example, and hit Save. We'll repeat that process. If we go back to Register and Stacking in the very top left, we're going to uncheck our 2 H-alpha and then check our 2 oxygen and repeat that. Stack checked pictures, hit OK, save that as a oxygen.tiff. Uncheck these, check the sulfur, stack check pictures, hit OK, save this as sulfur.tiff. You get the idea. It's actually surprisingly straightforward once you get over all the buttons and the advanced features here in Deep Sky Stacker. Really all I have to do is click a few buttons. It's not too hard. In this case though, we can save this to file, and there we go. Now that we've got our 3 stacked images, let's head over to Photoshop and create our final color photo. Provided you've been staying organized, you might have a folder structure like me, where we have all of our different objects we've captured with Telescope.Live, and that's where I've saved my stacked photos. We've got our H-alpha, oxygen, and sulfur. Then I can right click and open in Photoshop. At that point, we now have sulfur, H-alpha, and oxygen.tiff. I'd recommend you go through here and stretch each image individually before you create your color photo. In the past, I was not doing this, and that meant my photos tended to have a weird color cast. The way we want to think about this is that if every photo has the same brightness roughly, then there won't be a color cast. But if one of these TIFF files is brighter than the others, then you'll have a more dominant red, green, or blue color cast depending on the image. And the easiest way is just to experiment on your own to see what the differences are. Right now I'm using a series of levels adjustments to stretch the data and actually make it visible before we create our colored photo. I realize I am going through this quickly today, but I'm assuming you've been watching some of my other videos and you kind of get the basics of what we're doing. If not, then like I said, I did have a big update for my deep space course over on my website, which has at least 15 hours of tutorials by now, and that'll get you more than comfortable editing your own photos. That might really speed up your learning curve. In this case, now that I've stretched the data for my sulfur, H-alpha, and oxygen, I just want to verify that they're all roughly the same brightness. It looks like they are. Now we can choose any one of these to be our base layer. I normally go with H-alpha or red. Then we'll go up to Image, Mode, and change this from grayscale to RGB color. This will allow us to create a color photo. And then we'll hit Flatten because we don't need to worry about all these layers. Finally, if we click on the Channels tab on the right, we now see our red, green, and blue color channels. Currently though, they all contain the H-alpha data. That means we need to go grab our sulfur data, Controller Command A, Controller Command C to copy it, and paste it in on one of the 3 color channels. You're free to paste these on whatever you want, but I'm going to go with the Hubble color palette today, which states sulfur is going to go on the red color channel, so I'll paste it in there, and then oxygen is going to go on the blue color channel, leaving H-alpha already mapped to green. Then I can click on RGB, and we have our color photo. This is where I was getting at earlier in the video though. If one of these color channels is brighter than the others, then you might have a noticeable green or blue or red color cast. In my case, it looks alright. With our color photo created, and I'm making sure I've got RGB selected with all of these looking nice and bright, I'll click on the Layers tab and begin the rest of my workflow. The first thing I like to do is a series of contrast adjustments to fix the overall contrast in the image. I prefer using a curves layer for that. Then when you have your curves layer, you can click on the hand tool. The hand tool will allow you to choose what you want to make brighter and darker. And here we have a really nice view of the pillars of creation, which is an image I think we've all seen from the Hubble telescope. And now we're able to edit our own data thanks to Telescope.Live. In this case, with the hand tool selected, I'll click and drag my mouse upwards to make the pillars a little bit brighter. Then I can find an area I want to make darker, maybe up here, click and drag that down. And that alone added a really nice contrast boost to the photo. I could come to the curve layer itself and manually adjust these points if I'd like to. Or I can always go back to my Adjustments tab and add a new curves layer and repeat the process. Click on the hand tool, Find an area you want to make brighter, maybe down here. Click, drag that up, and then click, drag this down to add even more contrast. I might have gone a little bit overboard, but that looks pretty nice. Then we can go back to our Adjustments tab, add a Levels, and maybe just stretch it a little bit more because I did kind of go a little heavy on those curves. After you've gotten the general contrast of the image looking better, then you can worry about the colors. And in this case, I'm going to use a selective color tool, bottom row, second from the right. Selective color will allow you to adjust the colors in the photo very precisely. And this really can change the entire look and feel of the image depending on which way you move these sliders. In my case, I don't like the overly green. I might want a little bit more blue. That's up to you though to decide what looks best. Then we can go to the yellows, move the sliders left and right. And you can feel free to repeat the process as much as you want. For example, if I go back to the adjustments, I can add a new selective color layer, go back to my greens or cyans, and continue to really pull the colors along exactly how I want. It's starting to look pretty nice right now. And then if I think I'm happy with that, we can move on to the next step. Again, to make sure we're all on the same page, I've gone through, we create our color photo, we adjusted the contrast, now we're adjusting the colors. I might go and add one more curves layer though, and just see if I can get the contrast a bit better, and then we might crop it in a little as well. That looks all right to me. Then I'll go over to the left, grab my crop tool, and we'll bring it in a little bit. From here, I'll hit Control-Shift-Alt-E to create a new layer. If you're on a Mac, that's usually Command-Shift-Option-E. With our new layer created, we'll go up to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And I noticed we had a little bit of color noise in the photo. This would be a great way to reduce that. We zoom in here to the nebula. We see it's kind of pixelated a little bit. That's because we only had about 20 minutes of data per filter. As I said, you'd want at least an hour per filter for narrowband, if not substantially more. And that would reduce the grain in the photo. But considering that's only 20 minutes, that still looks really nice. If you want to get rid of the color noise, we'll go to the Detail tab, increase the color noise reduction slider to about 25. Generally, that works well. You can also increase the noise reduction slider to maybe 10 or 15 to make the image a little bit softer. Then we can zoom all the way out. Then we'll click on the Basic tab, and this is an easy way to edit your photo without having to know about curves and levels and everything else. If I wanted my photo to be a little bit warmer, I can do that with my temperature slider right here. I can even add a little bit of a purple tint, whatever you want to do. Then I can scroll down, maybe bring down the highlights a tad, bring up the shadows, and this is obviously a lot easier than trying to do it manually in Photoshop if you're still a beginner. If that all looks good, I'll hit OK, and I think we'll just do a few more minor adjustments. When I zoomed in, I noticed we had a lot of these hot pixels, it looks like, throughout the photo. See, there's one here and there and there. These are fairly common with DSLRs, but I'm not used to seeing them with my monochrome camera. Let's see if we can fix them though here in Photoshop. The easiest way would be to go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. When the screen comes up here, I recommend putting both sliders to the far left, in this case radius of 1, threshold of 0. You want to increase the radius 1 pixel at a time until all the problems disappear, and you don't want to go any further than that. In my case, around 3 I think works well. That completely removes the hot pixels and things from the photo. Then you increase the threshold slider until you bring back the finer details in the nebula. If you go too far with the threshold though, you're going to start causing artifacts in the photo, and eventually you'll just bring everything back. So in terms of your threshold, it's kind of just a balancing act between bringing back detail and causing artifacts. Generally, a threshold of 15 to 30 works well most of the time. So just mess around with that and see what looks best to you. I think we'll go with about 15 today, then I'll hit OK. After you've applied the dust and scratches, I recommend you look throughout the photo, turn on and off your eyeball here to see how that worked. Notice how we had all kinds of problems in this area of the photo. Then after our dust and scratches, they're all gone. But we still maintain the finer details in the nebula. That's a very simple, fast, and easy fix for those problems. And that's about all I've got for you in today's tutorial. I could go on here for another hour, but I'll save that for my deep space course and also some of my other videos here on YouTube. At the end of the day, I think we got a really stunning photo of the pillars of creation. And the best part was, even though I had a cloudy night, I was still able to capture data thanks to Telescope.Live. So if you want to check out the website, I will have an affiliate link in the video description below. If you click on that, you'll get the free 30-day account. And then from there, if you like the website and you want to stick around, you can save 20% off a 1-year subscription. Alternatively, if you already have a free account, you can use my referral code in the video description. Just copy and paste that in your account settings, and that'll also save you 20% off that 1-year subscription. But that's all I've got for you guys today. If you're like me and you're getting sick and tired of not being able to shoot because of the weather, or maybe you broke your lens or something, then I'd highly recommend checking out Telescope.Live. It's a fun way to spend those cloudy nights, practicing your editing techniques, and seeing some of the objects that might not be visible from your location.